So I'm going to work on these wheels and hubs and just take the hubs off, take the little oil cap off, and see what I need to do to check out the brakes and everything. So one of the first things I did was took a couple of the wheels off and took them and got them sandblasted and powder coated. And there's what they look like, and got new tires put on them. So when I get these wheels back on, I will do the other two. So the next thing I'm going to do is take this. This is the cap for the oil bath, the Dexter oil bath bearings, and so I'm going to take that off. You can see right here is where you refill the oil. Got to research and figure out what kind of oil I need to put in there. And it could be that the bearings have been packed with grease. Sometimes that happens. People pack them with grease instead of maintaining the oil. So we'll have to open it up and see what's in there. So got the cap off, and there's a castellated nut inside here. It had a cutter pin in it, so I took that out, and the nut wasn't very tight, so I'll back that off. Okay, so I got the nut off, and there was a washer here. I don't really know I've never done this before, so I don't know what to expect, but it looks like there's a set of bearings right there. I think this whole thing will come off. There it is. So there's a set of bearings, and alright, now take this off and see what's under here, which is the brakes. And so there's the brake drum. Oops, there's oil spilling everywhere. So it looks like there's a seal. I guess there's a seal back here to keep the oil in, and then the cap keeps the oil in. So I think all I'll have to do is make sure I get the cap back on tight, or maybe replace it with one of those new caps, and fill it up with oil, fill it halfway with oil, so the oil will oil the bearings, and I think that should be it. I'll check these brakes out. The outside of these brake drums were really greasy. One was especially greasy, the other one wasn't quite so bad. So I used some brake cleaner and this little wire brush, and scrubbed on them several times, over and over, to get the grease off of them. Then I used some Scotch-Brite to get a little bit of surface rust or any roughness, try to smooth that down. And I got some caliper paint that is supposed to withstand temperatures up to 500 degrees, because these things will get pretty hot. And I've got 2 coats on that one over there. Got 1 coat on this one. I'm getting ready to put another coat, and I'm going to cover this top up with that cap so paint won't go down in there. I got these on a little turntable where it's easy to paint, so I'm getting ready to put another coat on this one. So I've got these hubs / brake drums painted, and put 3 coats of paint on them last night. And next thing I'm going to have to do is find or make some gaskets. The original gasket is kind of it's not rubber, it's just gasket material, kind of like the paper / cardboard gasket material looks like. And so I don't think I'm going to find those anywhere, since these are pretty old. So I do have some gasket material that I had here for some other project, so I'm going to have to just cut those out and make some circles and put the drill the holes in them, and that should work. So like a lot of these things that I'm doing on these campers, I've never done it before, so do some reading, watching some YouTube videos. Unfortunately, I haven't found any YouTube videos on this exact process. I know they still make the Dexter oil bath hubs and bearings for newer trailers, but they look different, and so I haven't really found anything about the Holiday Rambler version of that, or those that are in the 70s. So I'm just going to have to do what I think is best. So I do have some gasket material that I had left over from a project. I never used it, and it says it's for sealing oil, coolant, and gasoline, and the thickness looks about right. So I'm going to cut some new gaskets and put them in there. Hopefully they'll hold. This is going to be kind of a trial and error thing, so hopefully that's going to work. So here's my new gasket that I made. I just found a couple of round things that were the right diameter and drew around it and cut around it with an X-Acto knife, and then I took the cap and just set it down on top of it and drilled through the holes to put the holes in it. And so now I'll put the cap on and use these screws with these little metal pieces under there to hold it down all the way around. Okay, I've got the hub slash brake drum painted, and I've also got it cleaned on the inside. I used some brake cleaner to clean the inside and this surface here, just to get any grease off of that, because it's going to fit over the brake shoes, and the brake shoes will expand out to make it stop. I never really knew how this worked, but apparently this is a magnet, which it's got two wires going to it. It gets energized when you step on the brake or hit the button, and it sticks to the inside surface of the side of the brake drum, that part right there, I guess, and then when it does that, then it causes the brake shoes to expand out and come in contact with the inside of the brake drum and slow you down. That's the way it looks like it works. I don't know, I've never done this before, but that's pretty neat the way that seems like it works. So I'm getting ready to put this together, and so I've made myself a new gasket. I had to scrape the old gasket off of here. I've got fortunately this camper came with some, in the trunk it had some new caps, plastic caps. The old ones are pretty oily and dark. Here's the bearing that came out of it. So I think I've got pretty much everything I need to get this all put back together. So I'll start with setting this on. Okay, so the bearings, outside bearings go in next. And then this washer, it has a flat side on one side, goes up against the bearings. And the castellated nut. And what I've read is that it's good, especially on these oil bath bearings, maybe all of them, but to go ahead and tighten this nut down snug. It's not going to remain tight because otherwise the wheel won't turn, but I'll tighten it snug. Let's see, okay, and you can see that's kind of tight there. Tighten just a little bit more. Yeah, that won't turn, so, but that's what we want to get everything seated in there real well and get it snug. And I'm going to back it off just enough so that castellated, so I can see the hole in the between these threads right here, just enough to get the cotter pin through. So I backed off, so now that spins. I think all you hear there is probably the brake shoes touching the drum a little bit, so that's good. Alright, so I'm gonna expand this cotter pin out both ways. Alright, got that cotter pin in there and spread apart. So I've got all these screws put in here and got them lightly tightened, but just like on your car tire or wheel, when you put a wheel back on your car, you want to tighten it with a star pattern. So that's what I'm going to do to make sure that this thing gets tightened flush up against there and even a little tighter on one side. So I'm just hand tightening this. I believe there may be some specifications on torquing it, and I'm going to have to try to find out if that's the case. And if I can find that, then I'll need to get me a torque wrench and try to torque it down to the proper specification. But I'm going to do it by hand right now. Okay, I think that's got it. Now, one thing that I read also is that you want it to spin freely, but you also don't want any more than, I think it said maybe 1/4 of an inch when you have the whole tire on there. You don't want any more that play than that. It doesn't look like this has hardly any at all, which is good. It looks like it may be just right. So the next thing I'm going to do is take this plug out. To put the ear oil in. I haven't found any information about the old Dexter oil bath hubs, but Dexter still makes a newer version of this, and they call for 80W90 oil, and so that's what I'm going to put in there. And I did the other side already, and I found that when I put the oil in, it seemed like it didn't flow from there out to here very quickly, and so I ended up putting more than I needed, and then I had to drain some out, and I think I drained out a little bit more than I needed to, so I'm going to have to try to be careful on when I put the oil in here. It's supposed to be full when it's halfway up that plastic cap. I don't see anything yet. Let me rock it back and forth a little bit to maybe get some of the oil to come through that bearing. Okay, I'm beginning to see it come through just a little bit right there. So I'm going to just rock it back and forth a little to try to help get it to come through. Okay, so it looks like I've got it to come right up halfway here, and there's actually a hole in the center of this plastic cap, and it will kind of weep out that hole if you get too much in there. I guess that's how it keeps it from getting too much. So next thing I'm going to do is put the new wheel and tire on, and then I'm going to switch and do the other set of wheels and tires. Alright, I was able to get the wheel on, and the sun went down on me, but got a light shining here so we can see what's going on. I backed the old wheels off of the ramps and backed the new wheels up on the ramps, or new tires and painted wheels up on the little ramps, so that I could raise up the old ones and get them off. I like the contrast. I like the way the new ones look. I think they look really nice. The powder coated finish looks really nice, and hopefully those oil bath hubs are going to hold up and not leak. That's one concern I have, is that they might leak, but the one I did on the other side seems to be have held and not be leaking, so hopefully this one won't and the others won't. So I'm going to take these old rusty wheels off, get them powder coated, sandblasted and powder coated, get new tires put on them, and rework the hubs and the oil bath bearings, and we'll be good to go.